Hi, I'm going to show you how to make this wall hanging using 120 autumn square patch mandala pack from mandalapatch.com. So when you get your piece of fabric, this is what it looks like, and there are 4 of each square on this piece of fabric. So the first thing you need to do is very carefully cut out the squares where indicated with the little dotted lines. These squares have been designed so that when you've cut them very accurately along these little dotted lines, you can sew them just by running them up the edge of the foot on your sewing machine, and your stitches will be in exactly the correct place. Obviously your sewing machine foot might vary very slightly, but you can wiggle around it by moving your needle left or right to get the exact right spacing. So the first thing we're going to do is cut them all out. So I'm just cutting out 4 of the same here so that you can see how that the system works here. These patches are symmetrical along one axis, which means you can put them together to form little mandalas, and you can spin them around along that axis as well to get a different effect. So I've got a little animation here to show you how it works. So here are the 4 pieces. You put them together or you can spin them around and you get a different effect. So there are 30 different mandalas in a 120 patch pack like this. The possibilities are endless, the way you combine them and the way you use them. I'm just laying them out here in a pleasing fashion. I'm just using the patches that are in this mandala pack, so I don't need to have any other fabrics, don't need to buy any other fabrics. All the fabrics I need are contained here, and they're all very carefully colour coordinated to blend with each other. If you wish to use other fabrics and mix in as well, that will work beautifully. These mandalas will give you just a beautiful effect in some areas. So I've very carefully cut out all my pieces. I'm just going to start now showing you how to stitch these together. So these are very easy, even for a beginner, to stitch together on a sewing machine. I'm just taking a felt tip pen and marking the left hand edge of each of these squares so that when I'm stitching them together I know the orientation and I know the way up they should be. And then I'm just going to pick them up in a nice orderly pile with the far left hand square on the top of the pile, and just pick them up before taking them to my sewing machine. So I'm just going to machine them now. I'm going to place them very accurately together and use the side of the foot on the machine as a guide to stitch. And we want to be stitching about 1 millimetre just inside of the coloured area. And you can see that when you open them up, then you can start to see how these pieces are going to fit together. So you want to be as accurate as you possibly can and just stitch them all together in one long row. So just keep going like that. Obviously if you wish to use other fabrics, all you need to do is make sure that the fabric you cut are the same size squares as these little squares of fabric, and they'll slot in just fine. So just stitching them all together. I'm going to stitch them all together into one big row, and do all the others as well, so that you can see how the quilt is going to come together. It stitches together so easily this, you can easily crack this out in a day or even a morning. It doesn't take very long at all. So I've got these strips now. I've numbered them so I can keep a track on which one needs to be sewed next to which one. And having got my numbers carefully, I'm going to iron the little seams on the back. Now because I've got odd and even numbered strips, I'm going to iron them in different ways. So for the odd number, this is number 1, I'm going to iron the seams over to the left. For the next number, number 2, the even numbers, I'm going to iron the seams over to the right. And this will remove bulk. When you're stitching the strips together, it will remove bulk from the seams and make sure that you've got no 2 seams running together, because then obviously you've got 4 thicknesses of fabric, and this way it keeps it only to sort of 2 or 3. So you can see there what I mean, that the seams are running in different directions, so you get a very nice tidy match up. So I'm just snipping off all of the little sewing threads, and I'm going to place my first 2 together. So I'm just going to use a tacking thread just to tack them together. I find tacking actually is a lot quicker than pinning, because you can take the tacking out so much quicker than doing each individual fiddly little pin. You just pull the tacking thread and it comes out, so it doesn't take any more time, and it does allow you to be quite accurate. So I'm just tacking down the seams as well, so that they don't get caught under the foot and accidentally get flipped in the wrong direction, because we want a nice flat thing when we finish. You can see there how the mandalas are starting to come together now. So I'm just going to stitch on the machine exactly the same way as I stitched the little individual squares together, keeping the foot in the same place. Just going along to the end, and then I will press that seam out of the way, and you can see now how this is coming together quite nicely. It comes together very, very quickly. So there we are now. I'm just snipping off little loose threads, giving it another press on the right side just to make it nice and flat. I'm going to continue now to sew all of them together, and you can see I have done that now. Just sewn all of those strips together, and you can see how the pattern has come together now to form this beautiful piece. Now this is the exact area that you get with a 120 patch pack. If you wish to make something larger, order another 120 patch pack, or you can add in your own fabrics. So I'm just laying out a backing sheet here, a piece of material that I happen to have, and some wadding, and I'm just making a sandwich with the quilted piece that I've made on the top, and just putting a few pins in just to hold everything together temporarily. And I'm just going to now trim around the wadding so that it's the right size and doesn't get in my way when I've got this in the sewing machine, because again you want to remove as much bulk as possible really to make things nice and easy for yourself. So I'm just trimming that down, and I'll trim the backing fabric as well to a reasonable size, and then I'm ready to take it to my machine and start actually quilting the pieces together. You don't have to do this. You can tie the pieces together. You can just hang it as it is. So I'm changing this for a freeform embroidery foot. If you don't have one of these for your machine, just take the foot off completely. You want to drop the feed dogs on your machine if you can, so that they're not interfering, because I'm actually going to just control the motion of the fabric myself. I'm going to use a meander stitch, or a stipple stitch is also called, and just meander around and around, just to get these fabrics nicely joined together so that we've got a nicely weighted quilted thing that we can hang on the wall. So I'm just meandering around. Meander stitch works best if you don't cross over yourself, and it also works best if you keep a reasonably uniform space between your stitches, so you end up with a nicely finished piece. Meander stitch is really easy to do, and it's quite good fun as well, so quite a fast process. So I'm just going to machine the whole of this wall hanging and get those pieces together. Here we are. I've finished doing the quilting of binding the 3 layers together there, just using my stipple stitch. So this is pretty much what my wall hanging is going to look like. So I'm just going to trim off the rest of the fabric now. I'm going to bind these edges with some bias tape in a minute. So I'm just cutting right to the edge of the seam allowance on those outside patches there. And I've got some 1-inch bias binding. I've just cut it on the bias, and I'm just now going to tack it very carefully around the edge of my wall hanging. So when you get to the corners, you need to just put a little pinch in and fold so that you've got a mitre effect. You can see there on the corners. So just continue tacking all the way round. And then of course when you've tacked it down, you're going to come back to the beginning, so cut that on the bias as well. And just finish your tacking, and then you can just machine around the edge to put your bias on. This is a very quick process. What you can do is just move your needle over to the right, and then use the centre of your stamper foot to guide along the edge of the bias binding to give you a nice even stitch, evenly spaced stitch around the edges. All you need to do then is just pull your tacking stitches out, and you can see this panel It's come together quite quickly. Very quick little project, and this is an effect with these mandalas that you cannot get with any other fabric because they're just not printed in a symmetrical fashion. So these will allow you to do that. So I've just made 3 little 7-inch loops from the bias binding I have left over. I'm pinning them to the back, and I'm just going to carefully stitch them where I stitched before so that you can't really see that they've been attached. If you put your pins in a 45-degree angle like that, you can sew straight over them, you don't need to worry. So there is our hanging. It's all finished. Looks quite pretty, and you can see the sort of effect that you can get with these mandala patches now. So you can mix these patches in with other fabrics, or you can just use them together like this. And this piece, this 120 patch piece, will be enough for a wall hanging like this, or a couple of cushion covers. So these are just pictures now of the patches, the mandalas and the squares that you get to form the different mandalas in this autumn pack. So the autumn pack is £14.99, and you can order it from mandalapatch.com. The autumn ones are in stock now. There's a couple of other colours we've got which are currently out of stock, but they will be coming back into stock very, very soon. Probably by the time you're watching this, they'll be in stock. So thanks very much for watching the video. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that way you'll get all of the new videos as soon as they come out. And thank you very much for watching. I'm just going to leave you looking at the different patches. Goodbye.